I'm gonna just show captions. Sometimes I just do that. All right.
That's true.
Aloha gang. Welcome to the Level Up with Leanne lifestyle podcast. And I'm super excited because I have met this coach on Instagram and I just really resonated with a lot of his messages. And so what do you know? I decided, hey, but it's not gonna hurt. I'm gonna try and hit him up in the DMs and see like, does he want to come and talk about a lot of the same stuff that I talk about with my gals that I feel is sort of like the big missing piece. Most of my gals want to, of course, fat loss and all that stuff, but we'll get into it. So, welcome, Dalton. I want you to tell our audience a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, all the good stuff.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for the intro. That's so lovely of you. And I'm so honored to be here. I love these chats, so I can't wait to just dive right into it. But I think you kind of nailed it on the head, right? It's like most women want fat loss, but they actually need a bunch of other stuff that happens. And my journey started about 11 years ago, where I first became a PT. I did that for a year, and in that year, you kind of test out training people, helping them with movement and stuff like that. You realize a lot of the stuff that you were taught didn't apply to like people. You're like, what's going on? Why didn't this work? And so you start to learn that, oh wow, everyone's a little bit different. You have to figure out how to communicate with them and help them understand what you're trying to get them to do. So that was really fun. But I kind of noticed a little bit of a trend where some people would get results and some wouldn't. I had mostly women clients because that's the industry is, predominantly women that are looking for fat loss and muscle tone, especially here in Australia. It's very common as well. Um, and so after about a year, I was like, okay, I can't fill any more people in my books at the gym. It's that same compressed time. I started thinking about how would I like help deliver this like same concept to people that are not at the gym or didn't have the time to come in to fit into the schedule. And so I started transitioning to online coaching after about a year of doing PT work, which here in Australia is personal training. Sorry.
Yep.
Um, and so after doing that transition and trying to like figure out what that would look like, I was online after about a year. So this was back in 2014.
Wow.
And
So
I
you were
became
the early bird.
yeah. Like I
Okay.
started seeing like people doing it, and not people doing it, like people needing that kind of thing. And I was looking around, and I didn't see too many like certifications or coaches doing it to like learn from. So I just kind of guessed. I would write out like templates on Google Excel, Google Sheets, or Excel, and write out the training programs and diets and stuff. And so at that time, I started doing my nutrition qualifications as well, because over here in Australia, we there's a little bit of rules where you can give nutritional advice as long as it isn't medical advice. There's no like law stating what is a nutritionist and what is a dietitian here. Where, like the
Oh,
deviation is a little bit gray. And so I
okay.
started doing some education in and around that, just so that I had some like something to like back up the recommendations and stuff that I was making. And um, then I got into the online space, and I worked with a couple hundred people, and really found the same thing, like that all the stuff that I thought I'd learned to help these people in the gym now needed more personalization as well. And I was like, okay, this is different. Like some people would get results and some people wouldn't. And after about 3 years of doing the online coaching, I was like had this stark level of like client testimonials where it would be like 30 to 40% would achieve everything that they wanted, and it was like 50 to 60, 70% wouldn't. And I was always like wondered what was wrong with my coaching, why I wasn't helping them get to this like point where people would drop off, lose motivation. Um, and it was in one of these emails that a client sent me where she was like, I've lost motivation again. That I was just like, I felt so hopeless for her, because I was like, how do I like, why do I feel motivated to go do these things and they don't? And so that was the spark that turned me into looking into psychology, started to help me look into behavior changes, started to look into motivation and try and understand people just a little bit better. Um, and at that time, I decided to go to university and do a Bachelor of Exercise and Nutritional Science. So I was going to become a dietitian here in Australia. So I was doing the undergrad for that. So it's a was a dual degree that is merged it into one, so you could specialize in nutrition or you could specialize in exercise.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
and so I did all the nutritional modules to become a dietitian, but then I picked all the electives to be around psychology. I wanted to learn
Yeah.
about behavior change and motivation and all those things because I just felt like there was this really big gap missing for like what I was trying to help them understand. And I wanted to learn, especially psychologists seem to be a great way to like help change people. And I was like, I really need to learn from experts to understand how this all works. And so I added that to my bachelor, and started reading as much as I could around psychology, as much around cognitive behavioral therapy, the new therapy style, which is called acceptance commitment therapy. It's a third wave um, psychology style. So it's like
Okay.
the new thing that's coming out beyond CBT. Um, and alongside of this, I was going to therapy myself. So I was seeing the changes in therapy, and I didn't resonate with CBT. I find a lot of the stuff with CBT made me feel more frustrated and more like adjacent, I guess, to like the therapy. It wasn't really like how do I move past these things. It was more how do I focus on what it is that's like I'm dealing with or whatever. And so for me, that just made it feel like it lasted longer. And so I tried all these therapists and found one that did acceptance commitment therapy, which is this new third wave of psychology. So
Write that
it's
down.
like yeah, it's the new stuff that's kind of coming out to help out with that. And the first session comes in. Well, I was just like, this is all the things that I'm dealing with or whatever. And these are the things that I've tried, and I'm looking for more tools to like help deal with all these things.
Hmm.
Help me out. Where do I start? And she's like, how about you just like accept that this is who you are, and we can move on from here. We can look at skills and strategies for like what to do moving forward. And I was like, but don't you want to talk about all those things? And she's like, is it going to change you? I was like, I guess not. And she's like, it's about who you are now. Like all these things have kind of formed you into this person right now. So we can accept that, and we can kind of find a commitment to like what we do to move forward. And that just blew my mind. Afterwards, I left the session feeling so light, and didn't have all this like thought noise going on in my head. And I was like, okay, wow, I have to give this to my clients. So I started doing those courses as well, and practicing that. And so I followed along. There's some brilliant books out there on that. The best practitioner that I found who helped resonate with my language in my brain, his name is Dr. Russ Harris, RUSSHARRIS. Just for
Okay.
anyone listening to my Australian accent and can't pick up what I just
Yes,
said.
thanks for spelling
No,
it.
of course. Um, and so he's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And so I started to apply those same concepts with clients, and just immediately saw massive changes in how we were thinking and doing and dealing with things. And I was like, wow, that okay, clearly there's something there that resonates with people. Because for me, as a back and when someone bring me a problem, I would just think, okay, like how do we fix this? Like what do we do to like make this better for you? If you lose motivation, I'll give you a new meal plan. Maybe that will help. I'll give you a new training program. Let's see if that
Yeah.
sparks things up. And I was like, it never really felt tangible because if they didn't want to do it, like they weren't going to do it anyway. And so I wanted to know more about what they were kind of going through at that time to like figure out that perspective. But really, I wanted to know more so like who they were as a person. And so I started evolving my coaching styles to include a lot more of this psychology alongside of the aspect, to now focusing mainly on behavior change and those aspects there.
Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, you see a lot of that in the space now, right? I don't know if you see it a lot, because you're in Australia, but I see it a lot too. As you know, I like you. I started as an in-person personal trainer, but for me, it's
Mm-hmm.
my second career. I was
Mm-hmm.
in the advertising and marketing industry for a really long time. That was my corporate career, and I never
Yep.
did I ever think that I would find fitness and want to pursue that as my passion, but it
Mm-hmm.
happened,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad for it. But again, like you said, when you take the certifications and you learn, they say like, okay, you pretty much taught, okay, here's the meal plan and here's the exercises, go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we measure and we weigh and we track metrics and we take
Mm-hmm.
photos and we stick with it and we lose weight and we, do all the things. And like
Mm-hmm.
you, I've always had a weight issue my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always battled with sort of this extreme dieting, extreme exercise, sort of disordered relationship with food and fitness, which I've done therapy for and all this stuff. So it was always me figuring it out too. But I kind of, like you, was like, I don't understand, man, because, you know, we'll go hard for 3 months, everybody's checking all the boxes, and we get all this progress from doing this thing. And then they get great results. And then, you know, 3 months later, we're back at the start because they can't keep it up. And so after a while, as a coach, everybody thinks, you know, as a coach, it makes you feel shitty. You don't want to, you don't want to have that for your people. And so I started to really look at and analyze, okay, so it must be the method, right? It's all easy when I say do this and eat that. And that's fine if you do it. But I just started to get curious, like you, to be like, well, something's off here. The framework is off. And then I realized too, it was like, okay, for me, the first aha moment was like, your goal has to be more than just wanting to look good and lose weight kind of thing. And that's for me, that's where it started.
So intuitive. So intuitive.
That's for me where it started. And again, that comes a lot from my own journey and figuring it out the hard way on myself. And so that's kind of what led me into like talking more about the mindset piece and including this more, looking at my training, not just as like a personal trainer that tells you what to do and tells you what to eat, but more of a holistic approach, starting with that mindset, the behavior. Because it's like, okay, we got to change. That's level 1, right? That's the foundation that we build the house. Okay, but for that, so your journey to get there, like, because, you know, I mean, to be honest, I mean, maybe it's different in Australia, but I've had a lot of trainers too, and mostly guy trainers, and we're always like, man, the dudes, they don't know what it's like working with a woman, and you know, they deal with all this stuff, and then now my clientele's 40 plus. So do you have a story that got you to training, or you just always loved fitness, you always been athletic? What's your deal?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thanks. So, but before this, personal training was like kind of my second job too. So I was in the army. I did that for a while. So I was in the army. Was in the infantry here in Australia, and I spent the first 4 years doing that. And it was in that space where we were just training, competing with people, and it's all guys, right? So like it's just this competitive like place. But that's I fell in love with fitness a little bit before that, but prepping for the army obviously was a pretty big deal. Trying to make sure you're not the least fit person to go through training. It was definitely a massive motivator. But then once you're in there, I was training for special forces over here in Australia, which meant trying to be even the most fit person in the company.
Yeah, like so like elite level kind of thing.
Yeah, and so we were doing 2 or 3 training sessions a day. So for me, I never really felt like I had to be motivated for fitness because it was like a requirement. So we just had to be this fit, and these were the measures, and so we had to do those things. And when I got left the army and I hurt myself, so I couldn't go through with the special forces stuff, and so I had to leave. And that kind of made me I lost my passion for the military after that because I was like, I've broken myself.
You're bummed.
And it didn't go where I wanted it to go. So I when I left the army, I realized that all the reasons why I wanted to exercise had left as well. So there was no requirement for me to exercise or anything like that. I knew it was good for me, but I was not naturally motivated or anything like that. And so I too put on heaps of weight after I left the army. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, why did I go from being this really fit, athletic person to now really struggling? And now in hindsight, I know it had a whole bunch to do with like who I was and how I identified with motivation and those aspects there. But at the time, I really struggled. So I just was like, I love the fitness aspect of the army. So why don't I look into the fitness world and do that there? But I ebb and flow with my own motivation towards training and fitness and exercise. Like I never been a guy that just walks around chiseled abs or anything like that. It's a struggle for me to lose like a couple of kilos. Like it's always a mental struggle. I always battle with everything. So I had to really learn a lot about food and training to make sure that it worked out for me. And the only way that I was ever able to sustain low body fat levels or anything like that was at high peaks of training. So I would be able to do I was doing triathlons and powerlifting at the same time. So this like hybrid training model created by Alex Viada from Complete Human Performance. So he's a brilliant coach, and his system's really brilliant. But it felt similar to the army where we just did crazy stuff for our training sessions. So I was like, oh, I like that challenge. So I did that, and that helped me keep pretty lean. But then after a while, when you complete the triathlon, or you can complete the
It's done.
powerlifting like thing, is, I was like, oh, what's next? Like, I love
Now
that.
what?
It kind of, yeah. And so I was like, why am I ebbing and flowing? And it turns out this is very normal, because what everyone kind of goes through, these ebbs and flows. Um, and now, knowing so much that I do about motivation and behavior change, I'm very stable. I can find a level that I want it to be, and keep that at, and be consistent with my food and exercise and stuff. So I was like, oh, if I can do it, if I'm someone that pushes myself to the extremes of military fitness or triathlons and powerlifting just to maintain some like low body fat, I'm sure I can help some of the ladies like really understand this. But it was because I saw so many women struggling with the same stuff, maybe not as extreme, but going in and on plan for a while, trying to like force themselves to change, and then burning out, and kind of repeating that cycle over and over and over. But I definitely was never someone that was just always fit or did the heaps of fitness and stuff in school. Australia doesn't really have a very we have more of a play-based school, like where it's not very athletic competitive or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we kind of have okay Olympic level athletes and stuff, the pathways in schools are not very clear. So it's just do whatever you kind of want. It's a little bit vague and all over the shop. So there's no real push for physical fitness or anything like that. It's very play based. Um, and so yeah, I didn't have any exposure like that growing up or anything. I just kind of found myself in these situations where if I forced myself to do the extreme things, I was able to be consistent and manage that, and that got me to the body that I wanted to be at, or the food that I wanted to be at, or whatever. But after that, left, I had nothing. So really, it was like, it was so familiar with so many
Yeah,
people that I work with.
that's so important to note. There's so many good things that you said that I think a lot of people need reminders on, especially in our space where we do work with a lot of women who struggle with trying to figure
Mm-hmm.
out the motivation. And also, what I talk to my gals a lot too is them kind of telling them or helping them understand that, look, the image they have in their head or this weight they have in their mind, it may not be suitable for their amazing and unique body. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's most of the disconnect, right? What they're chasing because they've seen it
Mm-hmm.
on a cover, or they see it, their girlfriend is doing it, or their
Mm-hmm.
friend did this diet and now looks like this, right? They want to go in
Oh
that.
yeah.
So all the great things you said is like, I think as coaches too, a lot of people think, oh, you get paid to work out, so you should either always look fit or look good or always be motivated.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, we are human at the end of the day, and it ebbs and flows,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
motivation ebbs and flows. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I think the messaging now that we hear is you can't rely just on motivation. Motivation is so fleeting. I mean, that's like
Mm-hmm.
something that I think everybody can agree on now. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
wait to be motivated to do the thing, you're going to be waiting a long time, right?
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I think having the message that despite that, like you said, you're going to ebb and flow. And there may be times in your life or seasons where you're highly competitive because you have a
Mm-hmm.
goal and there's something you really want to do. And that keeps you like with this tunnel vision and you hit
Yeah.
it. And then other seasons where maybe you get an injury or maybe you pivot or maybe life throws you a curveball and you're looking at a different career or something. And so
Mm-hmm.
then your activity is down and the diet is
Mm-hmm.
different. But going through that sort of like coasting or riding that current of that
Yeah.
flow, I think that's
Yeah.
important too. So I would say, like, how would you, what is your biggest advice for people who always kind of say, especially like clients, right, to say
Mm-hmm.
like, well, I just, I'm just not motivated to do it. Like
Sure.
they're dead
Yeah.
set, they're not motivated to do it, they can't do it because they're not motivated. Do you have any like
Yeah.
big
That's
advice?
such a great question. I love it. You're about to like hear me ramble like you've never heard anyone ramble before. So I love this concept of motivation, and I loved it so much that a part of my electives that I did at university were in and around behavior change, to the point that we dialed in so much to look at all the motivational, the I guess the motivational spectrum. So it's like all the different theories and camps that have aligned with psychology over the years. And I tend to find that this concept of self-determination theory, which is like 10 mini theories all like put into one. So it's like all of these little ones like that they pull together, They
Mm-hmm.
refine them, they turn them into like specific things. It might now be 6 mini series that they've absorbed some of the other ones and stuff, but back when I
Okay.
was looking at it originally, it started off with like a bunch of and so this concept was like, right, like if in this area of our life when we're doing something, this kind of theory works a little bit better with these types of people and stuff like that. So they're
Okay.
looking for something that kind of unified them all and said, all right, how do we help people with that? And from that birth this idea of psychological flexibility, which is this idea where you pick and choose what you're focusing on, like you pick and choose from your values and your goals, rather than trying to be this be all person 100% committed and motivated towards this one singular task. And through that, helped me really understand motivation to a better degree. So we've spoken about internal motivation before, intrinsic motivation before. We've
Right.
spoken about extrinsic. So for those that are listening that who kind of aren't familiar, I'll help explain it just a little bit as well. So intrinsic motivation is the motivation that seems to come from within inside of us. We just wake up and we want to do those things. It could be going outside and going for a walk. It could be reading a book, watching movies, whatever. The things that you naturally gravitate towards are those things that we are intrinsically motivated for. And that's really important because if you think about those things, we can actually draw some parallels from them to look at the stuff that we don't naturally do to help us want to be motivated towards doing those things. So there's a spectrum on that as well, where for us to be intrinsically motivated within ourselves, there's stuff that we do that takes absolutely no energy at all. It's like it feels so easy and like we actually top up from it. It's like filling up our own cup. There's some other things that we can be intrinsically motivated towards, but is maybe less filling. And so depending on the grade of that scale for you, if you ask yourself, how good do I feel when I do this activity? Does it make me feel better at the end of it, or does it make me feel okay? Depending on that scale, you can use that to kind of guide you on how to like make sure that you're doing stuff that makes you continually top up that motivation, so it doesn't feel hard. Same with external motivation. We have the stuff that's outside of us, right? It seems pretty similar, pretty self-explanatory. But external motivation can range from anything from a doctor or a coach telling you to do something, through to you being told or shown that you should be acting and doing in a particular way. And it kind of grades on a scale like that as well. So a lot of us try and use our extrinsic motivation, our external motivation all the time to sustain ourselves on behaviors. That's then kind of impossible because it's not a finite resource. It's something that continually, we use it all the time.
Changes.
Yeah. And so because of all the things that it impacts us, that can change rapidly or not. So if you've had a crappy day, you can use a little bit of extrinsic motivation to like help you figure out something, but the cost of that might be higher because you've had a bad the stresses that kind of like did take that away from us. Or if you had a great day, that it might feel much easier, and the cost of it's a lot. But we all felt that. We know that experience intuitively. We've we can remember times where it's been easy to say no to ice cream and hard to say no to ice cream,
Yeah.
depending on the day that we've had. Right? And it's not because you don't internally want ice cream. It's because like there's some goal there and something that's keeping you in mind. But we've had all these things impact us across the time, across the day, which has made us feel that. So that's that intuitive experience. Most people, when I say this out loud and like flesh that out for them, they're like they can relate to that. But when I ask them about how they feel about motivation or what's going on, like they can't articulate those experiences. We know what the experience looks like, but it's very hard for us to like consciously like bring it up and map it out like that. So making people aware of that really does help when it comes to motivation, letting them be able to like pick and choose how to do these things. But how to start and working on that is I like to entwine internal and external motivation all the time within anything. And the way that I do that is I get them to look at like who they are as a person. I want to know like what things drive, what do they care about, who and what do they love, who and what do they care for. And because when we can figure out those things, we can start to use those values from that area in other areas to give you a perspective on the stuff that we're trying to focus on in a way that helps you have intrinsic motivation, sorry, and external motivation as well. So what that would look like, for example, is if I said, hey, Leanne, you said that you want to lose a couple of kilos or lose a couple of pounds. Why do you want to do that? you might say like, I'd like to just, look a little bit better in the
Okay.
dresses that I'm
Yeah.
wearing. I want to feel good and stuff like that. And I say, okay, cool. Why do you want to feel good?
What do you do the 5 whys? Are you gonna go through the
Yeah,
5?
Socratic
Yeah,
questioning. Yeah, so that's just a great way
I
to like
love
just start off
that.
of that. Yeah, so Socratic questioning. Yeah, it comes from Socrates back in the day, Greek philosopher. But he would just ask why all the time, and so like that's the nicest way to like start it. But what we get to the end of that is if we start circling around something, that's your value. So if we start getting back to it, like you want to feel compassionate for yourself, or you really want to feel courageous, or you really want to feel um, adventurous, then we can go right like that. If that's the value that keeps showing up for you, let's use that value elsewhere. Let's say you want to like not eat this ice cream tonight. How could we rephrase you not eating ice cream to be adventurous, or to be compassionate, or to be like what was the other one I used?
I
Accepting, whatever it could be,
I
right? Like
love
whatever that
that.
value kind of, yeah, because then it's
So
a
you're
different perspective.
connecting the dots
Yeah,
between what they value and
totally.
helping what they value at their core,
Sure.
like their core
Yeah.
values, connecting it to
Yeah.
help them with that motivation.
Hmm.
And would
Because
you
then it
say this
matters. All of a
is
sudden it
right?
matters, right? Like it has
Yeah.
meaning behind it. Not eating ice cream because you want to be courageous for the goal or for the thing that you're trying to do. You can relate to that. You're like, I want to be that person. Like that's who I am. And if you do something that doesn't align with your values, it feels conflicting. If you like, you feel bad about being a like person that doesn't act that way. And so, I use this litmus test with my clients. I'm like, if you overheard someone talking about you when you're in like, say you're in a house getting ready for a wedding or something like that, and you're in one room getting ready, and you overheard someone saying, "Wow, like Leanne's so courageous, she's so brave, she's so adventurous," and that made you like warm and fuzzy inside. Then that's like a nice indication that these are probably the values that like work for you right now.
Right.
And if they don't make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, they probably apply, but they're not the ones that really and so I just do that with my clients until we get the ones that are warm and fuzzy for them to really feel it and connect. But the thing is, they're fluid, so they're never always the same. We go through changes,
Yeah.
life choices, and so they'll change, and that's cool. But once you know that, you can do that little process and find out what your values are. It becomes so easy to go right. I can connect again to the behaviors that I'm trying to do because of that the values that I actually have for myself. And sorry for anyone that's listening or anyone's watching. A value is something about us that is kind of a trait. It's not something that you can kind of pick and flick. You can't be courageous. I'm not going to be like, well, I was courageous today. It's not something that you can just mark off a list. It's something about who you are that's an underlying trait of your personality or you in that moment, in that, I call it a life lens, depending on what we're talking about. We could be talking about work, and I have different values
Mm-hmm.
at work, home as a mother or daughter, auntie, anything. So we're looking at it from that life lens. So if you as a mother are courageous, then and you don't act courageous, you feel conflicted, and you want to
Yeah.
do the behavior that doesn't do that. So it's an easy way to give it meaning to pick and choose the behavior that you actually want to be doing, without it feeling like a consequence of you having to miss out because you're on a diet. It's like no, I'm doing this because I want to be this person. Like this is who I am, and if I don't do that, it's a conflict of my values. And it's so easy to all of a sudden be like, oh, I don't actually want to do that. It's just my reaction to some stress that I've had, or it's just my emotions playing here, or just it could even just be habit based. I go to the ice, I have some ice cream every night, so and all I'm looking for my clients is to interrupt that reaction just enough,
Mm-hmm.
because
Press
that's what
pause.
like yeah, like it seems to like be like the best way to help them, like just bring them back to reality and not end up in that same position that they've found themselves over and over again.
Gosh, I love that. I mean, for one, I'm like blown away because to be honest, I'm a longtime coach, but I've always had coaches just because
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of the personality where when I
You
do
like learning.
something, I'm competitive. I want to be accountable, don't want to
Mm-hmm.
let my coach down. So when I did triathlon, I had triathlon coaches and I was just looking for like the best support to be the
Mm-hmm.
best self because I'm always like if I'm going to expend my
Totally.
energy I want to make it pay
Sure.
but
Totally.
um I can't tell you how I swear I'm 47 years old so this is probably the first time this year I found a
Mm-hmm.
coach that I finally felt like holy smoly she's like the coach I've always been looking for because you don't know what you don't know and I've
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of coaches over the years, especially in gym coaches, especially, I'm sorry, I don't want to bash, but mostly male coaches who are
Trust
just
me,
like,
I know it.
yeah, you just need to do more cardio. You need to stop
Yeah.
eating. You know, throw plyometrics at me all the time. So you must not be following your diet, just like making you feel awful. And I just was like, and then you really start to get a complex that you're doing something wrong. And then you become fearful, like walking on eggshells, because everything you're doing, you must be doing wrong because you're not getting the results you want. So, I mean, kudos to you for helping break that ceiling in terms of just being a really great hands-on trainer. Because again, people don't understand, like, coaching goes way beyond do this exercise and eat this food. It's so much more than that. It has to do with, like, I'm not sure if do you know Lane Norton? He's a pretty big fitness. Okay, so Lane Norton, he's talked about once on a podcast where if he could go back and redo his schooling, because I think he's like a PhD in nutrition, he would go back for behavior change. Because he talks about that a lot, the same kind of things that you talk about, where it's sort of like, it's starting about, again, meeting the client where they're at, figuring out how they're motivated inside and outside, intrinsic and extrinsic, but also knowing when to provide grace in terms of that it's not always going to be like check the box, check the box, check the box. And the method of beating somebody on the head with the negative reinforcement, it doesn't work. So I mean, I
I've
love
done
that.
A behavior change course by Gary Mendoza. I don't know if he's still offering it, but he was he's a brilliant behavior change certification. And we did a lot of motivational interviewing, and I think I've done sort of level 3 of his stuff. I did all of his courses, or at least 2 that he was offering at the time. Brilliant coach, but he does a lot of those aspects as well. And we focus on empathy as like a standpoint to like understand this, because no one wants sympathy. No one wants to be made to like feel like you're just like pitying us. We want you to understand the struggles that we're going through, but like that's really hard to understand the struggles if you don't have someone that's willing to like figure out how to connect to you. And so if you don't have someone that understands then also your perspectives, the values, those things, those aspects there, it becomes really hard to be empathetic, but also create action from that empathy to find a way to like bridge it into behavior change. And one of the things I brought up with Gary was this similar concept of like the motivation and this stuff that we've just spoken about. And we found a way to kind of blend it and mash it into those aspects there, and use motivational interviewing as a way to help clients create that self-actualization where they say the thing that makes them recognize the change that they actually need to make. Because I could sit here and tell them all day like what they need to be doing and stuff like that, but that never helps. So you have to have someone to make that breakthrough and discovery for themselves, because then it means something. Then they've actually got a reason to do those things because they figured it out. Like we all know what to tell them. Like that, it's not about
we know what to
telling them what to
do.
Yeah, it's like having them figure out and connect the dots in a way that makes sense for them.
Like you speak their language, or you get them to speak their language. That's what a lot of people say, right? It's not we don't have an information or lack of resources problem for fat loss. People know what to do at base level, right? You exercise, you eat relatively healthy for general pop, lifestyle client, and you move your body and stuff. So it's not like lack of information. It's something else. So it's like, like you said, figuring out as a unique person, what's your triggers. But would you say then that, because you talked a lot about a sort of like identity, and you kind of spoke about your personal experience when you're in the military and you're trying to go to the next elite level, right? You assume this identity. It's everything that you're operating to be this person. And that puts you like on a like very rigid, right, routine, because you have this big goal. So would you say that if people are looking for like sustainable fat loss, like these women that we work with that have a problem with motivation, sometimes I kind of coach my clients in terms of, you have to assume the identity of the person that you want your future self wants to be. You have to kind of act as if you're that person now. Is there any thought, or what is your advice on that? Is that too hard? Because sometimes the goal is too far away.
Like I think you brought up some really cool points, and I'd love to talk into them. we've understood in psychology for a while now that humans really can't, because we can't see themselves really far away. So the further we make our identity, the harder it is to relate to something, right? So if we know who we want to be in a week's time, we can understand who we are in a week's. It seems to be about 12 weeks is about like the edge of how long that is, 3 months for most people. That seems to be how far we can kind of imagine and relate to the person that we're
The
talking about there.
max.
But
Okay.
there's this beautiful study, I'll find it after the podcast and I'll send it through, where they were talking about this idea of like how far away they could relate to. And they had people try and like invest money for themselves into the future, into their own health. Just imagine the money, not even real money, but budget a portion to who they were in the future. And most of us, like, it seemed to be this like transition about 3 months where there was a big drop off, and most people didn't see the they can't relate to like who they are in 6
Yeah.
months, 12 months, a year's time. And so I love the idea of it. Don't get me wrong. What I like to do is put a little bit of twist on. So I
Okay.
like to get people to recognize who they are right now. And so we want to like, because I find that a lot of the times when there's deviations between these things, people are holding on to who they used to be. They're holding on to like, I used to run like
Wait,
5 miles. I used to be able to eat this much food. I used to, and it's like all those hang-ups actually slow you down because you're comparing yourself to who you used to be. You're no longer that. Every day we wake up different, and so we are who we are today because of all those things that we've done. And I do a lot of acceptance work with my clients to like let go of those aspects there so that we can recognize that we
oh,
are who we are today. Because
I
so
love
much
that.
of those like failures that we hold like that like happen to us are because of something that we've compared ourselves to, or something that we've held ourselves to, a standard that doesn't even exist. It's not who we are. And so I would do a lot of work to help on that as well. So if I can get them to recognize who they are today and what their limitations, but also their strengths are for like what they actually have right now, that I find is a way more powerful way to like start connecting the dots to who they want to be in the future as well. And so as long as I do that, then they can start to relate to the goal a little bit better. My objection, like always, my objective is always to have someone work on, think of their um, outcomes as values rather than goals. So I don't like to use goal based behavior. I like to use value based behaviors. Like, who do you, or what values do you want to have to get to this thing that you want to be actioning and doing, not how do we get you to lose another kilo or something like that. Like, kind
Okay,
of
so
like
how would, let's give us an example for
same
some of the
thing.
listeners. So say if the ultimate goal is fat loss though,
Yeah.
right? Let's just say it's 30 pounds.
Yeah.
Um, what would be like a common value we would assign sort of with a like a gal? Like give us an maybe can you share a client example or something?
Totally. It's I've actually got a really cheesy one because it's super easy,
Okay.
and it's like but family is a massive value for everyone. It's kind of like written into our genetic code, so it's a little bit cheap. I can kind of do this, but when I do it on the phone, it feels like magic when I've done it because they're like, how did
Okay.
this guy know who I was? But it's just ingrained into us that we all want to love and care for our family. Like but it helps them lower the barriers to like the resistance that they might have to talking about these things because it's pretty personal to talk about.
Yes.
Especially to jump on a phone call for the first time with someone that they've never even met. And
Yeah, they don't know you really.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so if someone's trying to lose 30 pounds, I would help them understand what that value looks like. And an easy one for most people to connect to is family. And so I'm like, what do you care about with your family? Like, who do you care about? Like, who are these people that you see? It could be grandparents, parents, siblings, kids. Kids is kind of the easiest one because
Yeah, right.
there's even a higher level of love for having kids. So
Yeah.
it's like it just attaches, it attaches itself to a feeling that we actually have that's really extremely powerful. And so because of that, it's
Yeah.
easy to relate to. So I'm like, who do you want to be for your kid? You know, like what type of person do you want to be? Like what does that look like for you? Is it adventurous? Is it passionate? Is it kind? Is it
Yeah,
caring?
it's
Is it
active,
trustworthy?
like keeping up with their
Yeah,
kids, right? Like
like
yeah.
let's like list off all these things, and when they feel something that I say and they go, okay, cool, like that's the thing there, that might be what it is. So let's just say it's compassion. They want to be compassionate for their kids. They might have seen like someone not be compassionate for them there throughout their lives, or they might have had it expressed on themselves. So they're like, I don't want that for my kid. um then I would say, okay, cool, let's figure out what we want to do to get you to lose that 30 pounds. So it could just be literally like I know your listeners are probably going to roll their eyes, but like drinking a little bit more water every day
Yeah.
can't just be like the start of a behavior change. I know that when I've had clients, when I just say that, they're like, not enough. I need more that we're focusing on. I'm like, if you just drank a little more water, I promise you, you'll feel way better. And that's a nice, easy baseline to start at. But like, let's say that we're gonna have them eat, um,
More protein.
a balanced diet or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a 30-30-40 split of macros or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What I then get them to do is say, okay, I want you to think about your goal. We want to lose 30 pounds, but we want to turn it into a value and an action and an outcome. So the action could be, I am choosing to be compassionate to myself by eating a balanced diet. And that
Yeah.
language is a little bit important, because if we give them anything other than them choosing to do a behavior, it feels restrictive.
Yeah, I get
Even if they
it.
say, I need to, I must, I want to, I wish I could, all those, all, like, as much as it sounds gentle on some of the words and maybe not so like not so restrictive, all of it is still has this restrictive
Little
power.
negative
So
sort.
yeah, if we choose to
Yeah.
do something, it takes away this feeling of resistance that it has to be. And
That's
so
such
I
a
lower the bar to failure,
yeah.
so that they can't fail this thing. I choose to do these behaviors. So they can choose to do it once and they succeed. They can choose to do it 100 times and they succeed. But there's no barrier for them to fail. And which makes it so much easier for them to get consistent and get rolling with this behavior as well.
Gosh, there's
So
so yeah, I mean, language is so powerful. And we know this because now the message that we hear a lot, which we all accept sort of, is what we say to ourselves really matters. And a lot of women can resonate. Like a lot of the gals, they say, wow, would you ever say that to your daughter? Like, oh, no way we would say that to our daughter. But they say it to themselves.
yeah.
So that's I totally get it. No, when you said about the water thing, because I think because I've personally been through a lifelong struggle since I was a small kid, always being like a little bit bigger in school and all this stuff. I am all about meeting clients where they're at. I think for some reason that gave me a better ability to identify with a lot of my clients, because I've literally been in their shoes and I know it's much more than, but I always tell gals, yeah, you can't do everything all at once, right? Where does that get you? That gets you like 2 weeks in, exhausted and over it. So why don't we just start with a small little, gentle nudges forward, which can be, like you said, for some of them, for some of mine, it's just like, hey, we need to fix your sleep first. What can we do for that? But so, okay, before we wrap up, oh gosh, we have to do this again and again. But you don't do any kind of like lecturing or classes where people can listen to you talk about motivation? You have a master class coming out, like,
no,
is that in the
I
works?
I've kept it all for my clients. Yeah, like I've got podcasts and stuff like that
Cool.
I've done where like I do talk about this in kind of bigger details and stuff like that. But yeah, I do. I spread myself too thin, like everyone.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're gonna
Yeah,
start to
I
build your little behavior change
yeah,
specialist team.
yeah. So I
Oh,
because of that, I like working on more products and stuff has just had to take a little bit of a pause for a moment. Um, yeah, but I have heaps of podcasts and stuff that I speak on it. And anyone that even just I offer a free 15-minute chat if anyone. It's no pressure, no sales or anything, but just talking to people to see if they're a vibe and to understand if they want to move forward and stuff like that. So there's like a no pressure, low barrier
nice.
option
Okay,
for
so
people that
let's
want to
just
have
repeat that. So a free 15-minute discovery call.
yeah,
Just like what we call in
essentially.
Hawaii, it's like talk story. We say in
Yeah,
Hawaii talk story. Have you ever been to
yeah.
Hawaii?
No, I haven't. It's definitely on my
Oh,
list. Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
really? Yeah.
yeah,
Come out. We'll show you around.
definitely.
So free 15-minute. They just hit you up in the DMs.
Yeah, and I've got a Calendly link that I can send you
Yeah,
if
you
you
give
want
me
to
the
post it as
Calendly
well.
link and I'll put it on the
Yeah,
show notes for you to
cool.
schedule just
Yeah.
to chat. And what do you want? So you do one-on-one coaching. This is one-on-one coaching for a variety of goals, variety of demographics,
Totally.
like the age
I
people.
mainly focus on women over 35s who have struggled.
Okay.
Those are the ones that I tend to resonate to the most. I seem to have understood their struggles the most. But I have clients ranging from one currently a great British powerlifting champion through to you know, a CFO in Hong Kong and stuff like that. So like I've got a whole range of different clients, a bunch of different sports, because my initial interest was always sports. But my program, the whole thing that I've been focusing on, and the motivational stuff that I talk about here, is all comes from this concept called the vitality script, which is essentially was a 10-step process to get the long-term behavior change.
Okay.
Now it's kind of developed a little bit over the last 4 years that I've been running it to like a little bit different, but the same kind of concept works. So it starts out like this, where we have a chat talking about values, goals, what they care about, who they are as a person, what they've struggled with before. Then I identify a path to get them to the behavior change that they're looking for over the future, and walk them through what that kind of looks like. And then we just be flexible. So like we work through as things happen, because life happens. It's easy to start. I want to start a coaching program really like, you know, gung ho and go quick and stuff like that. But I want to make sure that we're ready for things to, you know, be flexible as well. So if the plan doesn't work to the path that we've got mapped out, I have things to pull in place for when those are ready as well. So yeah, I kind of marry that to what their life experience and lifestyle looks like as well. So my coaching program, I shoot myself in the foot. I could just make it like a blank copy and pasted, like, you know, program that's really like lots of value, but, you know, low touch for me or whatever. But I want to work with people in the trenches as they're struggling with things. So I make it as hard as possible for me to scale, because I work with such specific like wants and needs that it would just be impossible. So I love those people that I
Yeah,
get to coach and help.
I see. So okay, so then would you say though people your sort of niche is they're coming to you because they want to? Is it because they want weight loss first, but they're willing but they know that they need behavior change first, or is it they're coming to you because they just want weight loss and they like this
Yeah,
idea that it starts with behavior change and not just that here's a workout plan, here's a
closer
meal.
to the definitely closer to the second one. I think I tend to get more people that have experienced crappy coaches or crappy like diet choices and stuff like that, yo-yo for a while, and finally feel like that they're like just lost with what to do with it all, like that nothing works for them. And so I focus on still fat loss throughout that whole experience. There's not just behavior change that we work on, but at the same time, it's like looking at how to turn those things into sustainable behaviors, both when we're trying to lose weight and then also when we're trying to maintain it at
Okay.
the end as well.
So are you like are they like tracking food and stuff like that, or
It's
it just
client
depends?
specific. Yeah, I've got like 10 different tools that I use to help out with that. So like it could be food diaries, it could just be verbal diaries, it could be emotional diaries, journaling and stuff like that. It could be macros. I've got, yeah, so many different tools that I use depending on where they're at. I try and give exposure to as many different tools as possible so that people have a range of skills to be able to use, because only knowing one way to do something doesn't necessarily help. But I want them to vibe with the tool that we're using as well. If it seems like it's high effort and low reward, I don't want it to be something that provides friction for the coaching experience as well. So I try and meet where people are at.
Cool. So what would be, I mean, do you have
It's,
any like
it's so hard to describe, because I'm like,
I
it's not just like yeah, every time I've met like
well,
any marketing person or any like business people, they're like, what do you do? And I'm like,
no,
and they're
I
like,
I
yeah, I
get
get
what
it.
you
Trust me.
they no, it's almost like, and I don't want to, I mean, I'm definitely not a therapist or whatever, but a lot of times, I guarantee every single client I've had that I've taken on as a long-term client when we've like done the discovery call, because I'm very much like you, sort of like your vibe has to attract your tribe, you know? And I always tell gals, no, I'm not into like, I get gals like, I want to lose 30 pounds for my wedding. I'm like, no, that's not my thing. Like, you can go find somebody else. I have gals that are like, I want to compete in a bodybuilding show. I'm like, that's not my thing. You can go find another coach. My coach is like enjoyable, sustainable, long term. That starts with like why you even want to do this thing.
Sure.
So I think it's just like hard for people. So they'll get on and I'll always be like, do you see a therapist? I was like, you should go see therapy, because I'm an advocate of therapy too. So
That's
I mean,
nice.
are you like
Yeah.
referring people out to go to therapy too? Or are you kind of like, because it's
No,
almost
I
like
go to
it's kind
therapy.
of like
I
what you're
always go.
doing, right?
Yeah, no, yeah, I definitely always go. Like I've had a therapist for a long time and actively go. And there'll be times where I'll go every 2 weeks, and then there'll be times where I go every couple of months. So
Right.
massive advocate for therapy, and I am too as well. You know, here in Australia, we have very strict rules on like what is treating trauma and what isn't and stuff like that. And because I wanted to become a dietitian, I'm very aware of what those rules and laws are and
Yeah.
when things
Stay
start to like,
within.
yeah,
Just
yeah. So
crap.
I start to say like, you know, like I love that you want to share with me some of these things, but I also can't just help you work through them. I can
Yeah.
listen, but you know, it's definitely something that a therapist would be able to help out with it massively as well. So yeah, I'm a
So
big advocate.
where's the best place people can find you to reach out to you? Is it social media? Is it your
Yeah,
website out here? And then I'll put it
Instagram.
in the notes too.
Yeah, Instagram's pretty easy. Like it's super visual, most people are on some form of social media, and Facebook as well. But I do have a website. It's just how to stop dieting. I found people were just Googling it, and I was like, that's a great business name. So I was like, let's do it.
Yeah. What was the business name again?
How to stop dieting.
I love that. How to stop
Yeah,
dieting. You have to write a book now.
it's actually in the works. It's something that
Ah,
I've been
good.
slowly
Yeah.
working on and stuff like that. Yeah,
Um, so as we wrap up, so are you accepting new clients now for people out
yeah,
there?
yeah,
Okay, so
definitely.
you're
I'm
always
about to
enrolling.
move actually South America for 12 months. So I'll be living in Mexico and sorry, Central America for 12 months. So Mexico and popping into the USA and stuff like
Oh
that as well. So
wow,
yes,
that's
I think
exciting. Is that exciting? Is that
yeah, no, super exciting. I'm just trying to remember the continents because I don't want it to be like someone be like, you know what, it's in Mexico and it's
somebody
not
will
South
bash
America.
you on when we post this?
Yeah,
Somebody, I mean,
yeah,
I'm bad. I was born and raised in Hawaii. I barely left the
yeah,
island. I'm very
yeah,
bad at anything geography.
yeah,
That's why I kept
yeah,
like saying 8 a.m. Hawaii. I mean, no,
yeah,
12 noon Hawaii is,
mhm,
I always get it wrong because we don't
yeah.
change back anything here.
Yeah, yeah. I've just come back from Indonesia, so we had to change it. And I was in New Zealand as well, so I'm constantly
Nice.
changing time zone. But yeah,
Is
I'm about
that
to move
work
there, so
related, school related, fun
no, just I
related?
like to travel. I just love to travel, so yeah, I'm
Oh, that's
able
good.
to
So
do
that's
that.
what
But
so that was one of my next questions was, so how do you incorporate self-care and recovery into your routine? Is it
yeah,
travel?
yeah. Honestly, travel is like the thing that fills up my cup the most. So I I love to be put into situations where I feel helpless and have to try and like figure out how to like overcome
So you're good with
some more
pivoting.
travel. Yeah, I find that. Yeah, yeah,
You need
pretty
to
flexible.
join. Have you know this show called The Amazing Race? No.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, we've
You
got a
need to
version
be
of
on.
it here as well.
That is like my worst
Yeah,
nightmare. I'm like, no, no, I need to know where we're going. I need to know the schedule. I can't figure it out on the fly. That is like my worst nightmare. But
hmm
I'm
hmm
sure I could change my behavior on that. But
Well,
so
yeah.
what?
Sorry, the reason I was saying that is because I'll be taking on more USA clients. So it would be in a better time
Oh,
zone and
okay.
stuff like that. It was just like, yeah, it's I understand when people like pick and choose a coach. There's like a bunch of reasons they might really like them, but time obviously has to make sense as well. So some of the available times in Australia just doesn't work really well for USA. So I'll be living in South America, Central America, and popping into the USA.
Oh,
So yeah, I'll be taking on a bunch more clients over there.
nice. And then you have any kind of email newsletter that you send out that people can sign up, or not right now?
Not right now. I do have one
Okay.
that runs continually. It's like but it hasn't been updated in about a couple of weeks. So
Oh, like an
something.
evergreen one,
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and then people can find that
Just
through your Instagram profile.
yeah, it's on both. Yeah,
Okay,
Instagram and on the
cool.
website.
So I think I know this is going to be hard, but the last question I kind of want to ask is, what is your, I mean, I'm sure you see a lot of stuff on social media with like fitness influencers and the
Mhm.
rip people giving all the shitty advice and da 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 da. And I mean, I don't know, does it bother you, or you just kind of like stay in your lane?
So how I originally got clients, it bothered me so much that I used to call people out. So it's funny that you brought up like Lane Norton before. Is like
Yeah,
I used
he
to be
calls
like
people out.
yeah, so I used to do that long time ago, like 10 years ago and stuff like that. So before even like Lane, back when Lane and Lyle McDonald and stuff like that, I was like one of the OGs on the internet, like back in like old forums and stuff like that. So I would be one of the guys that would read people's questions and answer the questions and try and provide some evidence-based answers towards those things.
Yes.
And people that would come in with nonsense or unhelpful advice and stuff like that, I would respond in kind, and it was a little bit aggressive. So
I
that was
love
how
it.
I got my following in the like initial stage. That's what helped me like
Yeah.
kick off to a couple hundred clients right when I went online. And I booked people from all around the world, which was really nice. But I've toned that down. I don't call out too many people anymore. I just point out the inconsistencies of like their arguments, or maybe like like show those things there. I don't think maybe people, my younger self would have thought that they're intentionally trying to mislead people, and just I don't think people are actually that evil. I think more people just unaware of what we don't know, and because you like when I first became a PT, was a very bad PT, but I thought being taught because of it, and so like I don't think that I was like intentionally trying to like hurt or harm someone, but if I were to see myself back then, I would just be like, oh, I think that's all he might know, so that be able to help these people as well. So trying to
And
come at
it's
it from
data too.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
You need to get reps under your belt, right? To realize, like, look, I have 10 ladies that did great for 3 months, and then they all didn't do great. Like, what's going on? But you know what I realized too, though? A lot of people sometimes are in the business just for money making, and they could care less. Like, I've worked in gyms and stuff. I've seen trainers do everything under the sun to be like, get a sale or close a sale. And I just think that's why I stopped working for a commercial gym, because I'm like, I can't. This is not like in my morals and value and integrity, like representing health, when this is terrible. People do.
Totally. No,
so with that, I
agree.
love that. You need to bring that back. Like
a
version, calling people out, but with your accent, you would go again viral on Instagram. It would be great. We love it. So with that being said, with all these like people, that's my hot button. It's like when people are dead set, holy grail on one way. What I don't care what way. It's a way that has to be enjoyable for you, but don't tell me like I gotta go vegan, or I have to go bulletproof or something. But so with that being said, what big message do you want to convey to others, particularly women, when it comes through this like sort of journey of transformation and fat loss and all this stuff?
Yeah, I think the moment that you stop caring about who you used to be is the moment that you become free.
I love that. Let's say that again. Say it again.
The moment that you stop caring about who you used to be is the moment you become free.
Oh, that's powerful. I've never heard anybody say it.
It's like it's just like a thing where you're held back by those beliefs and experiences that you've had in the past, because they can guide you on what to expect, and it's helpful, but most of the time it's harmful to the progress that we're trying to make when we're changing something. So the moment that you let go of those things, it becomes pretty exciting.
I love that. I always talk to some gals about like, look, you always follow a diet and an exercise program because somebody did it, you saw it here, but you never check in with yourself. Like, what's your personality? What's your psychology about it? You always follow a diet. How many times I've tried to be vegan? I hate being vegan, but I forced myself because I knew so-and-so lost so much weight on being vegan and But once you let go of who you used to be, you can be free. Well, thanks for taking the time with me today to come on. I hope this is something you can do again. Maybe we can do it in different continents, since you're going to be traveling. Definitely. And you can hit us with your expertise on a new, I don't know, I'm sure it's different, right? Different cultures with different populations.
I've been very blessed to be able to travel the world a lot, and it is so different. What we see westernized in USA, Canada, UK, New Zealand, and Australia, so different to the rest of the world as well. So it's been really cool. It's been really insightful.
Thank you so much. So when I'll put the recording out, I'll tag you, I'll send it to you. You can post it wherever you want. But thanks so much for your time. You have a good day.
Of course. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.